Welcome back to the podcast. Today I want to talk about Empathy 101. Last week we did a sort of Intuition 101 where we talked about the 9 different clair or intuitive abilities. And one of those that we chatted about was clair empathy. And while clair empathy is the intuitive ability, we can go even deeper with it with the different empathic abilities. So there's actually a difference between empath and highly sensitive people. And I think I want to start this episode by clearing that up first to help you understand, okay, are you having empathic experiences or are you a highly sensitive person? And then we'll get into the different types of empathy or the different types of empathic abilities. And I do believe that everybody has empathy in general, right? We can often understand and feel where other people are coming from, especially if we have a higher emotional intelligence IQ. So first, an empath is someone with the ability to feel and understand someone else's lived experiences without having to live it yourself. It's like walking in somebody else's shoes, and we're going to talk about how we can do that in a variety of different ways, whether it's through the body, whether it's through emotions, etc. And I also feel like it might be a trait that may be dormant for some people, just like intuition. It might be denied or ignored or brushed off or anything like that, but I think it's there. I think like maybe this might be a little bit edgy, but I feel like we're all at least conceived with an empathic trait and we can work with that or choose to not. I think that the biggest characteristics is that you can feel another person's physical or emotional pain. You experience fatigue after large gatherings, but this is also some similarities with HSP. Alone time helps to clear your energy and recharge. Change can be really difficult to embrace. You can read the energy of a room really well. You may feel responsible for fixing people because you can see why the way that they are or why things are the way that they are. And you may have experienced something similar as well. And so there is that empathy, like a general sense of empathy where you can understand and you're like, oh, maybe I can help. You just have this drive to really help people. Anxiety and depression may feel more intense for you. Knowing how people are feeling without them saying anything, people pleasing, you might be a little too sensitive, not in like a toxic definition way of sensitive, right? But sensitive to intense movies like war movies or really sad movies or even scary movies. You might be feeling like energetic boundaries are hard to hold, especially with loved ones. And usually these sort of symptoms can subside whenever you are using sort of energetic maintenance practices, which I love using with and working with my clients because they help in all areas of life, whether it's in relationships, friendships, whether it's in work, whether it's at school, anything like that. It can just be really helpful to understand, okay, I do have this energetic sensitivity to things. And not only that, but it doesn't have to be something that I just like trudge on into life with, but I can actually maintain and I can help take care of myself through it and all of that good stuff. On the other hand, HSP or a highly sensitive person is someone who's very sensitive to their environment. This usually does not include feeling another person's emotions or physical sensations or anything like that, but instead just being sensitive to bright lights and smells and food and clothing and different textures, different sensations, loud noises, changes in their environment. They can also be easily overwhelmed and need time to reset just as much as empaths do, but the different characteristics is about being particular about the fabric that you keep around you, whether it's with your clothes, like if tags just bother you to the point where it's like a big trigger, right? If you prefer to only go out in public during like slow times, so not in rush hour traffic, you're not going to the store when everybody just got off of work as well, or on Sundays. You might not enjoy activities that are highly stimulating, like concerts or large parties or going to bars a lot. You might have extreme sensitivity to light or to different smells or to sound or sensation, maybe even clutter. And at the same time, emotional overwhelm can be common, but it's not like you're taking on somebody else's emotions and feeling that sort of overwhelm with HSP. It's very common to have HSP and empath abilities. So I'm not discrediting anything here. I mean, everybody is so, so unique. But HSP usually shuts down when they're overly stimulated. But it's really helpful to have actions to self-soothe, and symptoms can usually be more manageable with grounding exercises. So getting yourself into a wide open space or a calming space, or maybe even a dark, quiet space, and just grounding your energy down into the earth, or coming into this space where you're not so stimulated and you can just kind of focus. And that can be really helpful, and definitely an energetic maintenance practice with empathy. But excuse me, usually with empathy, it's a lot of like clearing your energy, or being able to kind of close the outer, not necessarily close, but kind of tighten up the outer layers of your aura, because usually they are more openly woven with empathic abilities. So hopefully that kind of helps clarify a little bit between HSP and empathy, because they are so similar, but there are certain traits where you can tell differences. And yeah, let's get into it. So there are actually 9 different empathic abilities that can really be kind of niched out, but I'm going to talk about 7 today, because I feel like the other 2 can kind of get drawn into the other ones. So just kind of keep your ear open and keep your mind open and see what kind of things resonate with the different empathic abilities, and see maybe which type you have, or types. I have known people who have all of them. So, and it doesn't matter if you have one or all of them or even none. Energetic maintenance practices can be so, so helpful no matter what. So animal empathy is the first one. And this is actually experiencing the experience of animals. I don't know. There was just a new Christmas movie that came out, and it was like I don't know, it has like a 9, like the 9 troublemakers, or it's not that. But like, oh, excuse me. It was a Christmas movie about these kids who come together because they were put on the naughty 9, I think is what it's called. And so they were put on the naughty list, and so they need to have these different kids with these different abilities, these different gifts, in order to go to the North Pole and steal their presents, because they never got them. And so one of the kids is an animal empath, and so her role is to talk to the reindeer and get them to agree to help them steal the sleigh. But it's such a perfect example of animal empathy, because it allows people who have this gift to explore the animal's conscious, including its fears, its reactions, its emotions, its needs. Most people usually have like this pull or this draw to a certain type of animal. Growing up, I had a friend who was obsessed with lizards. And, for me, I love all animals, but I have an aversion to some. Like, I really don't like fish, and I really don't like frogs, for good reason. There's a whole backstory with those, where like, anyhow, I know it's weird. But for example, like some kids, and you can notice it especially in childhood, like really being drawn to cats, or really being drawn to dogs, or to birds, or you take your kid to the zoo, or your niece or your nephew, or you're just at the zoo because you're an adult and you love animals too, and you're just observing kids, and like they just get really excited over certain animals, and they just develop this connection. This is one of my empath abilities, and so when I went to the Smithsonian Zoo, there was an elephant there who kept rocking back and forth, and that's usually a sign that they're in distress and anxious. And I could feel the anxiety, and I could understand the exact situations and why that animal was not comfortable. And so I also feel like this is one to not pass up, because it's also a beautiful way of, or not discredit or push aside or think like, it's not important if you have this empath ability, because it impacts the rest of your life. It helps you to develop compassion. Oh my gosh, like if you've watched Fox and the Hound, the Disney movie, when you were a kid, and if you did not cry, I don't know who you are, but if you did cry, you're probably an animal empath. And I'm not saying like just throwing a label on you or anything like that, but it could be an indicator. The second one is emotional empathy. And I think that this is the biggest one that we stereotype as just empathy in general. And it's when you can feel, or even maybe even take on other people's emotions as if they were your own. And right off the bat, I'm going to say, if you have this, because I think it's something that you have, I don't think it's an identity per se. It's a part of who you are, you could say, but I feel like it's a gift, and it's something that you have, and it's something that you hold, and it's something that you can control with practice, and with practices. And one of the biggest things is a phrase that one of my integrative therapy teachers taught me, which is return to sender. And I used to work with somebody who said that, and we actually went through these empath abilities together, and kind of like defined them and everything, or worked through them to help explain them in really good ways. But it was the phrase return to sender. They didn't really understand why you would want to send something back to somebody if you could just transmute it on your own. And the way that I could best explain what return to sender actually means, just saying that affirmation and allowing whatever you've picked up on to just go back to who it belongs to, because we all have our own paths, and we are all meant to help each other, yes, but we are all here to do our own work, which is just so, so important. And we don't want to impact or take away or do somebody else's work for them when they're perfectly capable. And sometimes they just need help, yes, and that's where we can come in. And I feel like we have these empath abilities because they help give us insight on how we can help and how we can support and how we can be there for other people and how we can help the world. It's a beautiful gift, like I said. But this return to sender affirmation that you just kind of keep saying, it's holding the intention, and words and intention mean everything, especially on an energetic level. And the translation could be what Elise Myers says. I don't know if anybody here follows her on Instagram, but she's so cool, so amazing. I love her. But she says, I do not receive that. And that's the exact definition of return to sender. Like, I don't receive this. I don't need to receive it. I can feel it. I can pick up on it. I can perceive it, but it doesn't need to stay with me. And so feeling it and just saying, I do not receive this. Thank you for this information, because this is what it is. Emotions, energy, emotion, it's information. And codes and seeds and all of these beautiful things, right? But the biggest thing for emotional empaths is that they might feel and process a lot of emotional data and take on emotions from especially their loved ones, but just anybody. And they can just as easily take on emotions of people that they walk past or people that they make eye contact with. You might even find yourself feeling emotion from just somebody on TV or in a YouTube video. They can easily pick up when somebody is feeling that they're trying to hide something as well, or that they're lying. And this empathic ability can be really confusing. But as soon as you start doing the work on trying to discern what is your own, what is somebody else's, what are the cues of you picking up on somebody else's stuff, and what you can do about it, it can really allow yourself to feel empowered by all of it. So, and that goes for all of these abilities, right? Empathy in general. So the third type of empathic abilities that we're going to talk about is physical empath. So physical empaths experience another person's physical state in their own body. So growing up, I would experience chest pains, and my parents would call me a hypochondriac. And I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but I just remember like one time specifically where I think my dad was just arguing or getting really worked up and frustrated or angry about something. And my chest started hurting so bad that I had to go and just kind of sit in this like isolated stairwell in our house and just kind of like keel over and just kind of breathe through it. And it turns out that he had, heart issues. Like when he got super stressed, his heart probably did hurt. And so that's what I was picking up on. And it happens with a lot of things. Even my husband now, he has had a couple ACL reconstruction surgeries in his knee. And sometimes he gets knee pain, and I'll feel it in my knee, and I'll just be like, hey, is your knee hurting? He's like, yeah. And so those little cues, right? Those little things that happen, they offer insight on how somebody else is experiencing life. And it helps us have empathy and compassion enough to be like, oh, they're not feeling their best right now. But also it's helpful for me as an integrative therapy practitioner to be able to see, okay, where do we need to work on? Or where can we focus on to promote healing in this specific area? Or this is where this specific area is hurting or having an issue, and this is maybe the emotional or the energetic source or root of that, and we can go even deeper because all the different parts of the body represent different sources and different, I guess you could say, like, it symbolizes the different areas of life. So for shoulders, for example, it's all the responsibility that you literally put on your shoulders when you're having shoulder issues. So going through that, and especially joints in general is just like the flexibility of life. They also represent their own things uniquely, but it can be really, really helpful in that way. And so this is also a really common form of empathy. So if you feel like you're a hypochondriac, maybe you're not. Maybe you're just picking up on stuff from other people. So doing an energetic maintenance practice, like clearing your energy, it's possible, or using that return to sender, or I do not receive this, and just continuing working with that. And if you eventually come to a place where you feel like that sensation has been released, then that's great. It's probably somebody else's. If you are doing that and you don't feel a release, then it's probably yours and something that you can work with. But things like pain and illnesses and symptoms can come and go as you meet different people if you have this empathic ability. If someone's nervous, with physical empathy, you don't feel anxious, but your hands might sweat. You'll have the physical empathic or physical reflection of that, or maybe your breathing changes. And so I feel like this one is a really, really important one to do that. I do not receive that or return to sender or anything like that, just so you can practice having that discernment. The next one is environmental empath. And you could say that it's like home and nature or earth empathy. And I'm going to put all traits of earth on this. When you go to a place, and I have known people who they go to a place and they're like, I just feel like quartz is in the ground here, or I feel like there's amethyst around, or opal, or something like that. And then they do research and they're right on point, or they ask the park ranger and they're right on point. You can just feel when that stuff's around. But at the same time, you can get, if you have this empathic ability, you can get really upset when ecosystems are damaged. Or like something that like really grinds my gears is just the rainforest, the Amazon rainforest, especially because it's the lungs of the earth, and can get you really frustrated when you see that the local tribes are being killed and the trees are being cut down for various reasons, often for profit. And I used to live in an area where gas and oil came in, and it was a huge boom, and trucks would spill, and the wastewater would get into the water supply and kill fish and harm other people because now they don't have drinking water. Or these people, these companies would dump their wastewater, the frack water, into ponds on farms, and then the cattle would drink. And it was awful, and it just, quite frankly, pissed me the fuck off. And when you get that fired up about something, it's possible that you are an environmental empath. And so you might also feel really impacted by solar flares, which I'm pretty sure like even NASA like tracks when there are solar flares. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you're just feeling super off one day and you just want to see, all right, look up NASA solar flare update or something like that. And just see if there's a correspondence or a correlation, there. You might experience like vertigo, or even maybe like a cold or something that doesn't really have an explanation. Maybe not a cold per se, but cold symptoms when something on the earth happens, like there's a wildfire or a big earthquake or something like that. Technology may affect you in a stressful way as well. You might like to sleep with your phone in a different room as it's charging, or you feel like you need tech breaks a lot to just kind of maintain your balance and your grounding. At the same time, grounding mats can be really helpful for you. And then you can also just receive messages. It's almost like an intuitive gift. And Claire empathy is an intuitive gift, and so this is a type of it. But you might receive, messages from like a mountain, or talk to a rock. And this is not silly. It's not woo-woo. A lot of indigenous practices talk about this, stone people, and all of that. And so I think that environmental empathy is something that can really, really help understand what the world itself needs, and understand what the planet itself needs, and also kind of keep updated on the state and the status of the earth as we humans are going through the biggest shift and evolution and revolution of our entire history, probably. So the next one is intellectual empathy. And you're actually able to pick up on other people's mental processes or thoughts. And so you can actually see or feel or perceive other people's wheels turning, and understand other people's points of view on a different level than just intellectualizing it. It's like intellectual, but you're experiencing it for yourself. And that's what empathy is. You're experiencing all of this as, or for, or within yourself as the external sources experience it. And so you can really understand and perceive how people come to different points of view or different conclusions about things. And you're also really gifted with the ability to see and understand different patterns. I guess you could say like trend spotting. You can really see, okay, people are really getting interested in this, and on a collective scale, I can see this becoming mainstream. And not only that, but you can see the different interests or different steps or different processes that collectively need to happen in order to get to that destination. The next one is place empathy. And so this is being really sensitive to the environment, but not environmental, not ecosystem wise, right? This is like places and buildings, and those absorb different energies. Like if you go to a historic battlefield and you can just feel everything, that's place empathy. And I feel like that landed with a lot of you. Of course, personal homes also share energy with empaths too. And so you might feel a connection to your home as if it's like a living being. And if you think about it, wood has consciousness, wood has its own sentience, I guess you could say. So, and so does stone and all these different things. So it makes sense to perceive that as a living being. But you can also just feel if like you walk in somewhere and it just feels off. You can go in a blindfold or go in somewhere blindfolded and you can tell if you are at a funeral home or if you are at like a park and where, anything happens. And so, things might feel kind of creepy to you in some different places. An emotion or physical sensations or any other empathic abilities that you might have might activate. You pick up on that, and there's like no other real reason to be picking up on that other than being in that place. And you can also feel the energy of locations just by looking at videos or at pictures of places or watching a movie. Something that can be really helpful is to kind of try to keep your space as clutter-free as possible. And that can kind of help ease any sort of place empathy overwhelm. There was something else that I wanted to say, but I forget. Let's see if it comes in. I don't know. It's gone. Okay, so the next one is plant empathy. And this can kind of go with environmental empathy as well, but you can actually experience and connect with plants on a whole different level. I think this one is getting so common, especially since lockdown, because we're like subconsciously needing during lockdown a connection with another living thing. And so if you are considering yourself as of late or at any point in time in your life a plant person, or you really like gardening or anything like that, then you're probably experiencing this empathic ability. When it comes to plant empathy, you can really understand and perceive and pick up on what a plant needs and maybe even its emotions or its reactions to different things, like the soil that it's in, the water that you're using. Does it want to have spring water, or does it want to have maybe filtered or distilled water? Something that could be really helpful is keeping fresh flowers in your home and your workspace, because it helps to filter out different energies. But it also helps you connect with this different side of yourself, which is really beautiful. And of course, if you are around plants that are dying, like if you go into like a garden center or to somebody's house or anything like that, and that really just gets you going and fired up, then that's just another sign that you could have this empathic ability. The last ability that I'll talk about is sort of like planet or cosmic empathy. I'm just going to touch very briefly on it because it could be a whole wormhole in itself. But if you experience sort of sensitivity, or you can really perceive or feel or pick up on different planetary alignments, and you feel like it impacts you way more deeply, even like moon phases, and it feels like it impacts you more deeply than other people, then you could have that empathic ability as well. So empath and empathy and empathic abilities, all of it just really helps you to connect with the external world in such a deep way that can help you and support you. Burp confirmation for somebody out there, even in your life purpose or in different areas of your life. It helps you to understand yourself more at the same time, because when we pick up on something, we reflect to see, is this a part of me? Is it something that I could use and work with for myself? And so there are a lot of different practices and tools and techniques and everything that you can use around empathy. And I love doing that work with my clients. And while I would love to share some of those practices with you here, I'm just going to share a few different tips that can be applicable to anybody instead, because the practices that I use with my clients, it's really helpful to have this sort of unbiased support system that really knows what they're doing and can help you discern and help you integrate it into your daily life. And I don't want to just offer you something willy-nilly and, throw you in the deep end with it or anything. So a few tips, and this will work if you're empathic, if you're HSP, regardless. But the first one is just create alone and quiet time. It can be just so helpful to not have as much stimulation as we usually do in our day-to-day life. This can help us to tap in with ourselves, find some rest, find some discernment of, are we picking up on something? It's that time and space where you can do that return to sender, or I do not receive that, or any sort of energy clearing work. Energy clearing work, that's a lot, and the grounding work and everything, that's a lot of the practices that I do with my clients. But one that you can simply do is running your hands underwater to just release the energy after a long day, and just imagine it all just running down the drain with the water, and also offer some gratitude to that water for helping you. Notice how your body is responding in different situations, when you're making decisions, when you're around certain people. Don't forget to set and hold healthy boundaries. That's a whole journey in itself. So is balancing work and play. And so is allowing yourself to release the need of people pleasing, and all of that. It's their journeys, and it can be a lot of work for some people. So, have some grace with yourself on that. But just check in with your energy regularly. Check in on your physical sensations. Help yourself release things even on a somatic level, like breath work, or making sounds like growling or yelling into a pillow, or whatever you need to do, or just a simple sigh while you're working can really help. Dancing can really help. Anything that you need, stomping. Practice aromatherapy. There are so many different ways, and all that really matters is that you allow your empathic abilities to help you connect and understand yourself and the world around you in deeper ways, and to learn how to support yourself and how to hold yourself in that ability. So I hope that this really helps you understand empathy and yourself more. And if you want to go deeper with any of this work, I would love to work with you. You can find the link to work with me in the show notes. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the show. Thank you so much for being here and sitting in this circle for our chat today. If you feel called, let me know how this impacted you by leaving a rating or review, and I'll see you next time.